Daytona, let's go away.
So, guys, are any of you guys Dragon Ball Z fans? Anyone?
Nice.
Okay, well, just to get this started, everybody stand up.
Yes. Stretch, good big stretch. Oh, and a deep lunge.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. On the count of 3, we're all going to give a big Kamehameha. Okay? So everybody, ready? 1, 2, 3.
And breathe out and sit and bend at the hip, not at the lower back.
That is how to not introduce your friends to anime.
That was a big group example.
Yes. Okay. Well, guys, everybody, welcome to the Introducing Your Friends to Anime panel. We are Anime Vice, so why don't we all introduce ourselves? I'll start off. I'm Anna, and for me, the anime that got me introduced to anime was Dragon Ball Z. So let's go down the line.
Sure. I'm Mike Cruz, representing the friends who get introduced to anime from Cinefix, and the first anime I actually ever got introduced to was Saint Seiya, and I was like 6 and I was obsessed with it, but I didn't think of it as anime because I was like 6, and I was just like, TV! The first anime that I recognized as anime and got really into as an adult was Trigun.
Hey guys, my name is Sam, and I can't really identify the first anime I watched, because then we're talking about a lot of different animation studios that did what we thought was American cartoons. But
Speed Racer?
Speed Racer. No, for me, the biggest memory was the VHS tape of Ninja Scroll that I rented from Blockbuster. And I was like, this is going to be great. And then I'm like, what is Stone Man doing to Ninja Lady? And then it all kind of became weird. So that's a great example of one not to start with. But that was it.
My name's Tom Pinchuk, and has anybody heard of Doraemon? Yeah, that's the real stuff. I grew up overseas. That was quite the educational show. But the one anime that really got me hooked as a self-identified anime fan was Vision of Escaflowne.
Yeah! Oh man, it was 1997, nobody was born yet.
Yeah, that was great. Very popular in the crowd there. That's a deep cut. You should look for that one.
All right, hey guys, I'm Dave Lacey, and well, I guess that the anime that started my love affair with anime was La Blue Girl. I'm just kidding. It's Dragon Ball Z. I can't help it. That was the one for me, and yeah, and loved anime ever since.
I'm so surprised that the two of you are so into Dragon Ball Z. I could have never done that.
Hey, can we give a round of applause to these guys' cosplay? It's like wearable. Like, you could see this in the space stores, Armani Exchange, orange scarves, they're coming back. It's great.
So just so you guys know, we'll take questions throughout the panel. So if you guys want to ask anything, just raise your hands, and we'll pretty much stop. Maybe not mid-sentence, but we'll stop and then take your questions. So feel free to ask at any point. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start off with sort of some rules for introducing your friends to anime, or at least some advice, and then we'll sort of get into some recommendations. So first rule. Don't be a jerk. I know it sounds like something that should be obvious, but the fact is that sometimes, we're so into anime. We love this so much that it's easy for us to just, talk down to people that we're trying to get into it, or get really caught up on things like I'm just introducing this to you right now, how dare you mispronounce this word, So it's really important to just sort of be really nurturing to your friends. Guys.
Ease them in a little bit. Make their first time good.
Yeah, being pedantic is often not the right way to be welcoming sometimes. So just always remember that it's everybody's, first time, and the words and the language, maybe if they mispronounce something or if they get some description wrong, that's a better in-joke to have between you and a friend. It's like, oh, let's talk about Monkey Guy. Oh, do you mean Goku? And then it's like when your mom always called video games Nintendo. That's similar.
I would add that from someone on the other side, it can be very easy to be a jerk when the person who you're trying to be like, look, this thing is cool, is a jerk back. Because there are some of us that maybe have a little bit of a bias against anime that is completely and utterly irrational. It's just like, you know what time to be about anime?
Cruz, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so I can say this from even though I was into anime as a young kid and just didn't know. This sounds so weird. It sounds like we're talking about so many others. So it's like this is all like euphemism for something else. Yeah. But even though I was really into anime as a child, I just didn't understand myself yet.
My father never hugged me, but he gave me my first DVD.
Yeah.
It's the only affection I felt from him.
When I was in high school and college, when people were like, "Oh, you should totally watch Trigun or Death Note or whatever," I was like, "Gross! Why are you talking to me about that nerd?" And it turned out I loved it. So but it was very easy for my friends to like, become, it was very easy for my friends to become jerks back at me because I was a jerk first. But I had friends that were like, "No, stop being a d-bag and just sit down and watch this." And then I did, and it was awesome.
Yeah, one event I'll never forget was in college, freshman year. I was trying to get into the anime club, and I went to the first meeting, and I showed up a little late. And we were watching Last Exile, and during one of the commercial breaks, you remember this, Sam?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I wasn't there, but I heard this story.
the nice young lady who was running the event stood up and made a pronouncement to everybody in the audience and said, "Now if I hear anybody talking, there's gonna be problems." And that's really not the most inviting environment.
Do you feel how oppressive that is? I just pointed at you and the room went silent. They're like, "Oh no, what are you gonna say?"
Yeah, so that's, as somebody who had a casual interest at that point, that was actually a very clear, I'm not coming back to this the whole rest of the time. And I went on and kind of discovered it on my own. It's not something to foster a group experience. So, but there's kind of shades of that attitude sometimes. Like, you don't want to take it too seriously to people who are like trying to, people want to have it be, needs to be easy and accessible.
Yeah.
So rule number 1, be patient and tender. It's their first time.
Yeah, I remember I was in college, right? And like, at that point, the biggest thing for me was Dragon Ball Z, and I remember there was an anime club. And I showed up and they're like, "Oh, what kind of anime do you like?" I'm like, "Dragon Ball Z." And this guy was like, Dragon Ball Z plus English dub equals lobotomy. And I was like, okay, because at that point I'd only seen the dub. Now, granted, part of it was I was hitting on the guy's girlfriend all semester, but still it hurt.
Well, Dave, that actually rolls perfectly into the next thing, which is...
Don't steal people's girlfriends?
That's the fun part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even going to touch on that, because, sometimes anime could help you, I don't know. Do not get into the subs or dubs debate with people that you're trying to introduce to anime. I know, some people get very, very caught up with like, oh, subs are better. But the fact is that when it comes to trying to introduce people to anime, sometimes dubs are just easier. I hate to say it, but I know plenty of people that won't watch anime because I don't want to read when I'm watching things.
Totally.
Really?
That's the same thing that they say about foreign films, too.
Exactly.
I just wanted really quick, by show of hands, who has gotten into a sub versus dub debate? Who has actually gotten into it? Oh, good. Okay. It's a pretty healthy.
Little one.
So my experience with it was I initially didn't realize that there was a problem. I just knew that the dub tapes cost way less than the sub tapes at Suncoast, and so I was like, well, my choice has been made. This is obviously how you buy it. And I wax and wane depending on the voice cast, honestly.
Yes.
And it's a thing where I don't know the language. My only familiarity with it is from the years and years of watching it. You pick up on phrases and you kind of understand intonation or the character types that they're playing in the Japanese language, but it's a line call, Ultimately, the language you understand the best is the one you're going to gravitate towards, and then the other one you just get familiar with.
Yeah, and I think with hardcore fans, localization really becomes a bad word, and it shouldn't be. I think really the big reason, I really see one of the huge reasons that Dragon Ball is kind of the top tier brand that it is in America today is because when it rained on Toonami, they took a lot of creative license. And when they did the dub, that was what was accessible because after school every day, everybody would get to watch this, and guess what? It's in your own language. And also, they were having fun with the material. They were kind of ridiculing it about the same time they were staying on message. And I don't really think that was a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you to another dimension.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna kill you.
Yeah, and in all cases too. I mean, if anybody ever grew up on Dragon Ball watches the sub, has anybody done that?
Oh, really? Only one or two?
Yeah.
3?
How appropriate do you feel like Goku's voice is in the sub?
Horrible?
Horrible. Yeah. Like they just. Yeah, there's some decisions that they've had the same actress who's voiced Goku since he was a little boy is still voicing him today. So you have this big, muscular dude, and he's just talking. Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't fit, and I don't, I think that there's a lot to be. I can see both angles on. You want to stay true to the intention of the material, the original artistic intent, but I do think. Sailor Moon, Speed Racer, these were all properties that have kind of gone outside the niche because they went through a little more of a process. So I don't think it's always a bad thing.
Yeah.
And from someone who I said that the first anime that I watched was Saint Seiya. I actually watched Caballeros del Zodiaco, which is the Spanish dub of Saint Seiya. And if I had tried to watch the subtitled version, first of all, I didn't know how to read. Legitimately. Second of all,
You are unearthing a lot of things today.
I know.
I don't know what this says about me. I didn't know how to read.
I'm using these panels as therapy. I feel like you guys are my therapist. Thank you. It's free. I tried to watch the sub as a little bit later when I realized that it maybe was in English or some other language and I wasn't sure what was the original, but I realized that the lips didn't match and anyway, it was Japanese translated into English, translated into Spanish, which doesn't work.
How many people had their first anime experience not with English, with Spanish or another language? Okay,
Right?
a few people.
So at that point, there's too many layers, and sometimes the dub is necessary to introduce someone. But then don't do what I did when I was then older, which was assume that my friends who refused to watch subtitled versions just also didn't know how to read. I got really concerned. I was like, you're 25.
Where were you schooled? What was happening?
What's a trip is I went back, I was a little older after I'd seen all the DVDs and the dub, and I watched the DVDs with the dub, but the subtitles underneath. So I got the full story. It's a little schizo to do it that way because you're trying to pay attention to 2 lines at the same time, but you learn a lot. When I was young, I never understood how Android 18 and Krillin had a baby.
Yeah.
Because she's an android. That's weird. She's like Data from Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
And then I would watch the sub and I was like, oh, she's a cyborg. This all makes way more sense. Yeah.
Cruz opened his mouth, and then he just closed it.
These are the things I worry about. These are the things I, stay about.
They made a wish to the dragon, and that's how they had a baby.
They left that out.
Yeah.
It was a Kai cut.
It was something else involving balls. I'm skirting.
So rule number 2,
Okay,
it does
and-
not come with instructions.
I can't believe it took that long to make a Dragon Ball joke.
Yeah.
And with that, we move on to the next rule, which is show your friends things that they'll like, don't focus on things that you love. The fact is that, your friends might not be into the same things you are. Maybe they're more of a sports junkie than you are. Maybe they're more of a sci-fi nut than you are. And so, the things to show them are things that have to do with that. There's a ton of anime out there for sports fans. There's a ton of anime out there for sci-fi fans. Just because you love, Dragon Ball Z, just because you love Saint Seiya, just because you love any certain anime, focus on what your friends will like, on the things that your friends currently like, because, you guys don't like the same things. It's part of what makes your friendship so cool.
I want to speak to that point because I had a column on the old Anime Vice site about watching anime with my girlfriend, who later became my wife. And she's a director, she likes film, but then I was like, well, let's do something funny where it's she's a noob and I'm in it for life. So it's let's see if there's any kind of commonalities. And the biggest thing I discovered was that she had no clue that there were different genres of anime. She had absolutely no clue. And you have to kind of dive deep a little bit for that. I mean, think about the first show that we keep mentioning is Dragon Ball, right? That's like, you've seen that like meme where it's like the top of the iceberg is like, yo, basic is like Dragon Ball and like Sword Art Online, but then like level 2 is like Hellsing. It's like that. So what's important to remember is that for a lot of people that aren't already familiar with anime as a whole, like just field of genres, realize that that isn't surface for them. So like if you make them aware of something, like she really liked Madoka Magica because A, it was really, how many Magica fans by the way out here? Okay, that's good, that's good. So anyway, so she loved it mainly because it was different. She didn't expect it to do the things that it did. But the other quick point I wanted to make was that it is well written. Like the scripting of it, the twists don't come out of nowhere. The language doesn't seem, well, that can be debatable, but but everything is solid. It's all kind of character based. Whereas she was like, isn't it just a static image with a moving image in the background, and then those two static images collide? Like, isn't that like what it is? So this kind of changed her mind on that, and that it would approach people of different interests.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to keep in mind too is that with a lot of like long-running series, if you're a fan of One Piece, you're gonna love it more and more as all these details of this lore and this mythos kind of start building up. But if you're somebody who's trying to come into it who has not been there from the beginning, it is super confusing.
Oh yeah.
But I think that, you know, I see the argument come up a lot of times also with like superhero comics where it's like, okay, Daredevil's been running for, you know, 50 years at this point, and the way that they kind of get around that is like they retell his origin pretty frequently, so at least like some people have some sort of jumping on point. But again, it's like in terms of like ease of accessibility, is say if you're interested in a concept like Daredevil, it's like, well, if I get the latest issue of the comic, you know, maybe it's making callbacks to a story that happened 30 years ago versus if I watch a show on Netflix and you're only dealing with say 12 episodes or?
Yeah, like a limited, 12.
Yeah, it was a little, it's just, it's easier to take in. So I think it's probably better that when you're looking at these titles that might be easier to get people hooked on, doing one that's like 700 episodes might not be the best one to start with. Doing one like doing a short run series or doing, probably even the best one is just a movie, and I think that's why Studio Ghibli ends up being, one of the reasons it ends up being the crossover that it is. It's just that when you pick up, say, Spirited Away, there's no prequel to that, right? There's nothing that came before that, and even if you haven't seen any other Studio Ghibli movie prior to that, guess what? You don't have to.
Which, by the way, this was the next rule, which was keep it short.
Yeah, you know, I mean that's a good segue there. It's just that if it's somebody who, and I think that also worked as effectively as it did because it slotted pretty well into like an Oscar film, right? I mean, it was in the running for the Oscars that year, so it's like, guess what? Like, oh hey, you like foreign films? You like the stuff that usually gets nominated for the Oscars? There you go. It's right in that category, and so. But that takes presentation because Princess Mononoke only came out a few years prior to that, and that was just when Disney had to deal with Studio Ghibli trying to figure out how to package these things, and it didn't have that kind of push slotting it into like an Oscar kind of.
Yeah, giving it the context of like people that don't usually watch anime love this, so we should all be watching it. It's the Cowboy Bebop argument. Like everybody goes, it's like Firefly, it's accessible sci-fi, and it is really accessible. But it's because like it's made by people that like knew what they were doing and changing like just making it very compartmentalized.
Yeah, presentation.
But I feel like Ghibli sort of lives outside of anime in a way, because I feel like a lot of people that see those movies don't really think of them as anime. They sort of think of them as Disney movies, and they're not necessarily going to go and try to watch like Death Note or try to watch Attack on Titan, because that's weird. House of Castle is totally normal.
Part of the reason and I know that like at least two of you are gonna hate me after I say this, but part of the reason it took me a really long time to get into anime was because my friends were trying so hard to shove Dragon Ball Z down my throat.
Good friends.
And I tried to watch it, but it was like I was impatient, and they would watch an episode and be like, oh cool, awesome fight. Episode 2, the fight still counts.
They're also
oh man, episode 11, this fight is still. I think I'm done, guys. I think I'm done with all of anime because Dragon Ball Z is clearly all of anime, and it's all the same, and it's all gonna be exactly the same. And so when I was like, got really into Westerns, and this is part of why Trigun became the first things that my friends introduced me to. I got really into Westerns with like John Wayne, and like, anyway.
That's how he acted.
I'm John Wayne. I'm John Wayne.
Less effective than guns.
I'm on a horse. I'm gonna try and watch John Wayne movies that haven't. They're gonna be like, wait, that's not what he's like. That's what he's like.
Now I just want to see
If you watch
anime version
the
of John Wayne.
sub and not the dub, that's what John Wayne sounds like. But so they started, you know, they were like, you need to watch Trigun, you need to watch Trigun, it's got that Western sort of feel. And the other thing about that, and so it was a short run,
Yeah.
right? I didn't have to commit to like 775 episodes. It fit with something that I was really into. And how many of you watch Game of Thrones? Okay, cool. So for those of you that don't know, I'm not going to spoil anything because you should watch it. What's wrong with it?
Just drop everything right now.
Drop everything, leave right now. But the thing that I think Game of Thrones did really well in the first season was it kind of started like a medieval like period piece with very little magic or fantasy or anything like crazy. And so if you were someone who automatically had a bias to like, oh, only weirdos watch fantasy, then like that didn't stop you from watching Game of Thrones. Because it was just a bunch of weird white people in weird costumes having sex with each other. But then
Which is the majority of anime completely.
right. But then by the end, you have like Girl on Fire with dragons, right? And you're like, what is happening? But it sort of eases you into that fantasy, like magic, mythology. Trigun kind of did the same thing, right? It takes a really long time before you find out he's a plant or whatever.
Yeah.
And if it started that, if you start your friend who's never been introduced to anime, it's like you're supposed to. Anyway,
Space Plan. Stop it.
Anyway, so if you start your friend with something that like starts with like, I don't know, face melting alien explosion weird things.
Yeah,
they
don't
might
show
not-
him MD guys.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Ease for all those. So patience, tenderness, ease it in. First.
Yeah, I mean, we actually did we did the videos too. We did a roundtable about recommending shows that fans of Game of Thrones would like. And I think again that's the reliable strategy. It's like if you have a friend who's a big fan of crime dramas, you know, look into like say Black Lagoon maybe, or
Yeah.
but I mean it's again
Definitely.
yeah, or Death Note. Yeah, I mean it's just that you have to kind of think about it because it's like saying if you like Spirited Away and saying, well, okay, watch Dragon Ball. They're so different, they might as not be, you know, they shouldn't be categorized together. It's kind of like saying, oh, you like British film? Do you like King's Speech? You like Colin Firth? Well, guess what? You're gonna love Kingsman. Right? Like it's so.
You love American movies?
Yeah.
Oh, I have watched it. They're all the same, right?
Yeah, you know, I always tell people to watch Death Note because it's got all those pieces, like it's short, and also it's got that, you know, I always like to call Death Note sort of like a Sherlock Holmes story where Moriarty is the main character, because it's about the cat and mouse game between L and Light, and I think like there's so many crime shows and crime movies people are into that like, I think that's something you can sort of latch onto, and they go, all right, even though there are times like dramatic writing that's like super weird and crazy, if you can get past that.
I think Psychopaths works on the same level, just
Yeah.
like because it's like crime drama, and yeah, it's really elevated and there's sci-fi elements, but like if you just said it's like more of a procedural Blade Runner type show,
Like Minority Report.
or Minority Report with that, you know, that's easy. People go, yeah, that's cool. And then the other thing too is it plays off this expectation that anime is just like science fiction animated. There's so many shows that deal with those tropes.
Can I add something to our list I just thought of? Because I always have to tell people this when I get into anime. I'm like, okay, you gotta understand, I think there's the big leap between fans of anime and people who aren't really into it is like you have to accept like weird stuff. Like stuff way out of the box, stuff you
Oh,
never
question!
expect.
Oh my gosh, question!
Oh,
All right, hey, give me a round of applause! You get Vagabond Volume 23. All right, what is your name and what is your question?
My name is Raj Rizzo. It's not really a question, but more of a comment on like psychopaths. So I tried introducing my friend to it, but just episode 1 is really like with the animated scene, I guess.
It's very intense, like, because there's the sexual kind of assault, and then there's a lot of violence. So you found that was a bump for them? Okay, you guys know what a bump means, right? It's like when you're watching something, all of a sudden you go, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like this one, and you're just like going along.
Well,
And then you John Wayne out of the room.
Hey, John, fill your hands, Pilgrim.
yeah, that's an intense one.
Thank you. Good question. Good question.
Yeah, that's. Again, we think it's a good show, but it's something that if you're a fan of, like, say, HBO shows,
Yeah.
or say Blade Runner, and you're kind of used to a guy getting his eyes gouged out by his thumbs, that's something.
Was it a friend that's into anime at all, or a friend?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's probably not the best way to go for.
Well,
like,
too soon. I want to speak to that point too, because anime deals a lot with shorthand. When you're watching like Oran Oran Host Club, right? Isn't that one
Oran
anime
Host
clan?
Club.
So it's this anime that's built around like, what if the harem trope was flipped, and then there's like, disguising your gender, and then like trying to fit in, but then it's all these like cute boy stereotypes playing out in front of you. If you have zero familiarity with like what a harem is in anime and like what those things are, you're gonna watch it and you're gonna be like, this is silly, but you're not gonna get why it's really funny.
Yes.
Because you've had years and years of watching it. So just always remember, like, the thing that resonates with you, and then you go, this is the best example of such and such genre, like when you watch
Hunter x Hunter.
Hunter x Hunter, right? The best show ever. Now, right? How many Hunter x Hunter fans? Or Hunter x Hunter, as we call it on Anime Vice. Because the X is not silent. But anyway, just remember that there are shorthand that they're dealing with constantly. They're betting on the fact that you're already familiar with what the tropes are and what the storytelling shorthand is. I mean, think about like in older anime shows, they had the dots appear above their head, they had the teardrop, they had all these other little things to truncate, exposition and what a character is. Or, the roses appear and the focus gets all soft, and then like their eyes sparkle, and then the other person like seems really weirded out, and there's a lot of gay panic for some reason in those old shows. And so just remember that the more that you can explain and tell people why that's funny, or just calmly like give them an intro to why those shorthands are used, they're gonna enjoy it more. And that's what happened with my wife, where it was like, once she found out like, oh, that's what it is, she's like, oh, that's funny. Like, that's clever. Like, yeah, okay, it wasn't a laugh out loud moment. But anyway, just remember that if they're not experienced with it, just make them experienced.
Yeah, I remember showing a friend some kind of anime. I don't remember which one it was anymore, but he was like, what is the deal with the guys with the blood shooting out of their nose? There's a hot girl or some kind of sexual situation. That just happens in anime, but like...
Wait, that's never happened to you?
Well, okay, it has, but I don't want to talk about it.
I was gonna say that like the other thing I think that speaks to that moment is that for whatever reason and how, let's not try to explain why, but I think one of the stigmas coming from the non-anime watcher and the person who's judgmental of people who watch anime is that there's this like weird, irrational, veiled sexual connotation of like people who are in an anime are into this like weird sexual fetish. And it's like, what does that have to do with Death Note, guys?
I don't know, his hair is really cute.
And so starting anyone off that's never watched anime with any form of anime that starts off really soon with anything that deals with sexuality, even if it's not like particularly shocking, is probably a bad idea, because it's gonna reaffirm the notion, the completely wrong and irrational notion that you just have this like weird sexy fetish. And it has nothing to do with like story or character or animation or any of those things.
Yeah,
And if those elements are super, super prevalent, like throughout for no reason, probably not the show to show people. And if they don't like it, they just don't like it. It's okay.
Yeah, I really had to feel for Toonami and Adult Swim when they licensed Space Dandy.
Stop it. I'm cutting you off right now.
I love
You are
Space
so
Dandy.
wrong
Do you not love
about Space Dandy.
Does he not like Space Dandy?
He doesn't like
Space
it.
Dandy.
He's only seen like the first episode. He doesn't actually. How many people have seen Space Dandy?
Dude, season
That's
2
good.
was boss.
No, season 2 was the biggest boss.
It was
Yeah.
awesome.
All right, guys, it's not about you. It's about that.
It's a show. Let me say this.
Oh, questions.
Sam Connealy cuts off about Space Dandy.
We have another comment. Is that cool?
Yeah, so
Okay. All right, your name and your comment question.
My name is Gabriel. I recently got into anime in LA for a while, but like a lot of them don't really interest me in some kind of way. But the one I really found like that I really liked was the horror genre. But I mean, I tried looking at certain ones. Some of them don't really get into it, like that. In a certain way to get you that kind of click to it's like, oh, like, you know, this is really interesting. Like the last one I saw was a Ports Party, and that one was just like,
You just killed somebody back there. When he said corpse party, the guy just leaned forward and said, no. No. Like, are you okay, sir? You're okay? All right, good. All right, reach your hand out to me. That's a good question. Horror anime.
Wait, what kind of horror do you like?
well, the one that just like something that is more or less psychological, like Another, that was like a pretty good one. But I also had like something that had like, I don't know, something that had like an intense buzz that seems to kind of give you that click where it's like you don't really expect it, or have something like supernatural, or like kind of like something like that.
So you'd want something supernatural.
Yeah.
I mean, I would recommend. I was gonna recommend Monster.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a long form one. It's just like this
Thriller.
surgeon saves a boy who then grows up to be a serial killer, and he kind of has to like, they both get back into each other's business, and he kind of has to deal with the guilt of the fact that he prolonged this monster's life. But that's, I mean, but that's not.
Have you ever seen Devilman, the original OVA? There's a sequence in that gave me nightmares. And it's literally, it's like so tame when I describe it, but it's literally like this sequence where it's like the primordial era Earth, and it's just the plants and creatures that kind of go around and like they're eating and devouring each other. And then like later on in the episode, there's a party sequence that starts as like this orgy thing, and there's blood. It's way more violent, but it's horrifying. And then there's a sequence later in the second episode. Anyway, if you haven't seen the original OVA of Devilman, you should check that out.
Yeah,
That's pretty hardcore.
If you're into manga at all, I read one called Gyo.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yo,
that.
Yeah.
Uzumaki.
It
You guys
is-
know
yeah.
this guy, right?
It will
Yeah.
like haunt your dreams for weeks.
Yeah.
It's not really supernatural totally, but it's creepy as all
Yeah,
heck.
GYO, it's got amazing art, and you kind of wish it wasn't so good because it's so creepy, the content, that
Yeah.
it'll give you nightmares.
Okay, I think we got another question. Sam?
Oh, well, yeah, we got another question, and then we'll go back to the panel for a little bit. Your name and your question or comment?
My name is Vivian, and I'm just kind of wondering, just your comments. Like, I want to introduce Inuyasha to someone, but I'm not quite sure whether I should because they're kind of new, and I'm not too sure that's an appropriate one to go with.
Well, what to compare it to, or is it like?
No, just like, is that an appropriate anime to recommend? And I'll take point with this one. I had a good friend who was in a band with me in high school, Dave, who he loved Inuyasha. And it was like the only anime he watched. And then I watched all this other stuff, and I was like trying to introduce him to it. And it's a long-running series, but I think it's actually a lot of fun, and it's pretty light. Anything with Rumiko Takahashi. So, you just want me to what?
No, it's just,
No, we're good.
we got more questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
you got the questions? Okay. I'll round back around. Okay, man, I need to wait for a while. Da 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 da. Sing with me. Da 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 da. All right, name and question.
My name is Mikey, and I actually have a long introduction for this because
Can you truncate it at all?
okay, so I started out reading comics, have the first Daredevil.
No, there we go.
Oh,
I have a
nice.
Daredevil #1.
Wow.
And moved to Inuyasha was my first manga because that was the first one I found. And what I thought was cool about manga was that they stepped outside of that seven traditional stories as the European style. They never gave you something you expected. And then of course I finally got cable. It became a thing. And then Inuyasha was like watchable. So you can see the progress. So then I started watching anime.
You're talking about the fact that in like shonen stories and action stories, there's like this long tail progression to it. It doesn't just move through like the typical acts that we'd expect in like a Western story.
Well, no, it just goes off to left field. You know,
Right.
and that's what's cool about it. It doesn't have the typical, you know, happy ending or whatever. And you know, it goes off in left field, and that always surprises me.
Yeah, that's actually that's kind of the Eastern and Western traditions. Go ahead.
What I like about sports anime is that sports anime is, I'm not a sports fan. Sports anime makes sports accessible to the non-fan. That's what I like.
Yeah.
And my question.
Yes.
Okay. I told my boss I was going to be gone for 4 days for Anime Expo, and he said,
Be very polite when you ask this, guys.
and he said, "What's anime?" And so this is a man who's younger than I am. He's a year younger than I am. He says, "What's anime?" And, you know, my husband knows about anime. He hates to watch it because of the shrill voices. and I find it very hard to recommend anything that starts with the middle school MC. But what I found that Facebook is my best thing is if I find something that just really catches me, I put it on Facebook. I say this is really meaningful for me. Check it out if you want to. And that's the approach I do, you know.
That's an important note. Like social media, Facebook, Twitter, it's an easy way to get exposed and have those conversations.
Most people my generation, they're like, what's anime?
Right.
Well, she does bring up something interesting though, is that you know, a lot of American shows are informed by like this kind of Western tradition of storytelling, where it's like 3-act structure, or if you get more specific, it's like 7 kinds of stories, and it's like you're dealing with something from the East where it's kind of a different view of that sometimes. Like I had a friend who worked on translating stuff, and he said that the view wasn't so much about, say, like, you know, beginning, middle, climax, you know, resolution. It was about kind of assembling the pieces on the board, and then just that was the process. Yes. So you have like these irresolute endings a lot of times that can be pretty frustrating, where it's like you have a lot of action and a lot of build-up, and then it's just like, oh, I don't know, maybe humans can learn to love, you know, the and it's like...
It took me 400 episodes to realize that fact.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, that was something I was pretty frustrated about with, say, Parasite. Did anybody watch that?
Parasite, show of hands?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a show that's like, you're kind of building this war between these, you know, these body snatchers, and then it's kind of like, it doesn't really proceed in the way I think if it were done in America. And that's a good thing and a bad thing potentially, because you're going to frustrate some friends who are kind of expecting that to go a certain way, and if it's so off kilter what they're expecting, then it's going to be frustrating.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the animes I really love, and I was very confused when I started watching it. Part of it is because it's a prequel. I hadn't seen the one that came before it is Fate Zero. Yeah. And what's really cool about Fate Zero, along with just an amazing premise, is the fact that, you know, one of the main characters, really, you don't even realize it's the main character until like 16 episodes in, and then you finally get like their origin story, and that's not something they normally do in America, and that's what's really, and sorry, my phone is making noise. But I think, you know, there is that different structure, but the payoff is better. Trigun sort of does the same thing.
Yeah,
too.
Trigun, I remember when I finished watching it, I was like, okay, fine, Steve, I'm really into anime now. When's season 2? And it was, well, there's a couple movies.
Batman Trouble, bro!
We all know that pain.
You can read the mangas.
We all know that pain if we watch Slam Dunk, too. Yeah, we're going to the big tournament.
Yeah.
Done.
The tournament never existed. All right, we got another comment.
My name's Ivan, and you know, before last summer I was watching anime, and then school came by, stopped, and started reading manga. And I met a friend who also read manga. Like, he never watched anime, just read manga. I thought, cool. So
It sounds like the beginning of an anime. Everything you just said, it's like, I went to school, and then I found this, and then I had a friend. Maybe he liked anime. Guess I'm gonna find out. And then aliens attacked.
He was actually a magical ghost.
we tried getting back into anime. I tried getting back in, I tried to introduce him, but we just found it really difficult. Like, why is it? Like, it's really difficult to get back into anime. I'm so used to manga, it's just like, I can't.
Oh, interesting. So you're a big fan of reading and sharing, and then to watch the anime. Do you find yourself disappointed by like adaptations of the show?
In action ones, no, because like in an anime, I enjoy action a lot. But like with story based, it's just like it doesn't get blended out in anime form.
I think that's what happened with Parasite. I think that's why Tom kind of had an issue with the ending, is because they kind of had that fizzle out effect. Any examples, guys, of like a manga to anime transition, how to massage that? Oh, do you have an answer? What is your blue? Are you blue D? What is this?
Well,
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Elfin Light.
Elfin Light?
I believe that's like how the manga was so good, and it went to the anime, and the ending was just disappointing.
well, we watched, we did a video actually on comparisons between Akira, the manga, and the movie, and it's just like the movie's almost like a third of the story of the manga, and if you actually read it, it's like I vastly prefer what's on page. But I mean, just kind of tying it back to what we're talking about here, though, is like, you know, you kind of have to, the thing about when you're looking at entertainment from another culture is sometimes you sort of view it like in a context of its own without kind of realizing there's parallels to what you enjoy here. So, okay, so for instance, like if you think that the manga is vastly superior to the movie or to the anime, yeah, that's a perfectly valid opinion, but I mean, let me put it this way. How many of you have watched like Bond movies, like, you know, James Bond? Okay, how many of you have read the James Bond novels?
Novels?
This is book?
I would love it if we just made James Bond fans. Like, I can read books. I can read books. Right.
Yeah, but like I think that's like a totally normal. It's a totally normal reaction that like transcends anime.
Totally.
Because adaptation is adaptation, right? You're always gonna run into a situation where like, hey, I went to my friend and I was like, yeah, I really like Gone Girl, and they were like, oh, it's nothing like the book.
Yeah.
And look, sometimes you run into something where the book is worse, but that's rarely the case. I mean, like, I can think of like Jaws. The book is worse.
I think.
But like, for the most part, it's just a different experience. And so like, I think being open to it being a different way of telling that story and a different shape, that then instead of necessarily focusing on comparing them, kind of seeing them as two different ways to experience a similar thing tends to be better.
Also, remember, not all animes are based on mangas. You know, some are completely original stories. Some are based on video games. Some are prequels to animes that are based on video games. Like, you know, Fate Zero is actually a prequel to Fate Stay Night, which is based on one of those storytelling video games. So, you know, there's plenty of other ways to get into it without having to watch an anime that's based on a manga you've already read.
And a lot of the shonens are pretty accurate. They're just, you know, shorter storylines.
Okay, we got another question, comment?
Hey, my name is Sean. So a lot of friends that I have that actually watch anime, they actually watch a lot of stuff that's like really lighthearted, kind of fun, I guess, slice of life and stuff. But I kind of want to try to introduce them to the idea that anime can actually be like a more deeper in meaning. So say like I love like Evangelion, I love the anime, and say I kind of want to like introduce to them like me or something like that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Me. All right, I don't know this one. What is it?
I don't think I could explain it.
I've seen a lot of shaking heads, so that's an example of an anime not to introduce people with.
That's the thing. It's kind of like once you first watch it, you are speechless.
Is this like a cat soup situation, or?
Cat soup.
See, now you're shaking your head. All right, what do you think? Esoteric philosophy?
If I'm hearing the question right, like you're looking for some titles that maybe have a little more artistic or, you know, like kind of more philosophy to it than just like pure action, is that right? Or?
We can't hear you without this microphone.
So are you looking for sort of a transitional anime from the lighthearted stuff to something a little more hardcore? Is that?
So if you've actually like seen me before, if you look into it, there's actually like meaning towards it about like the otaku lifestyle and how it's kind of like how it kind of like devours someone, I guess.
Welcome to NHK, that one?
I think I've seen like comparisons to it, but basically like it's a very, very shocking experience to watch me, but if you watch it again and look deeper into it, there's actual meaning, and I want to try to get my friends to kind of like see that meaning instead of like what they actually
Okay, she's saying like the underlying stuff, like it might seem like one thing, but when you watch it again, it's got some kind of soul.
Yeah, I think I know what you're trying to say. Like, your friends watch lighthearted anime. You want to say, hey, look, there's these other shows. There's a lot of other shows where like you don't want to judge necessarily what's happening on the surface automatically because there's a deeper meaning to it, and it's not just this like fun people yelling and throwing balls around. So I would say start with more serious anime where the meaning, the like artistic quality is more relevant, like more, not relevant, but like obvious. Start with stuff where like there's a more adult themes and deeper meaning that is more obvious before you jump into stuff that takes a little bit more work.
Yeah.
Because if they're used to like, let's say, if they're used to like Looney Tunes, and you're jumping them and you're throwing them like, hey, watch The Descendants, like, or The Departed, like they're maybe not going to be able to jump from the Looney Tunes to The Departed in like 30 seconds. But if you start with something a little that they might be, so for example, for me, one of the things that like got me thinking about anime in a more serious way, and then considering anime I thought was silly or ridiculous or stupid, and trying to figure out maybe what the creators intended or that there was a deeper meaning, was something as simple as Samurai 7. Because I could look at Samurai 7 and very obviously be like, okay, there's something artistically beautiful about this, and this is a more adult story, and it's deeper, and these characters have many more layers, without it like freaking me out.
Yeah, the storytelling is a lot more linear.
Yeah, it's linear, it's very simple, it's very obvious, it's very, to a Western audience, like what it's trying to say and the levels of it. And so then that allowed me to be like, oh, people that make this like think about what they're doing and are creating like there's meaning to sort of it. And that allowed me to get into the weirder stuff. So like,
I also think that when you find resources online, like blogs and articles, they'll do these big breakdowns of a series, or, insert name of series. What does it really mean? And you can find those articles. All over the place. I got another comment question.
Just a quick recommendation. I recommend Mushishi. Because again, that's all self-contained episodes, but it's more, each one kind of deals with kind of more ponderous themes, but it's not like with Evangelion where it's like you have to watch a whole like 26 episode opus and really pick apart like a really deep think piece. It's more like, again, it's accessible because each episode is focused on one theme and they're really kind of independent of each other.
Here we go, another common question.
Glenn, a quick question. I was curious what writers y'all think are doing it really well right now. I can speak briefly about Dragon Ball Z, the guys who write for that show and for others. I didn't know if y'all, second question is kind of about 30 years ago I got introduced to a show called Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah.
And it's really the first shared interactive thing where basically 10 or 12 of us would get in a room and we just take over the characters. It kind of helped you learn how to write and compose things, and just being silly and stupid, basically. And it was funnier, actually funnier than the show.
Yeah, I'm totally behind that. I mean, I'm just like, I was a big fan of Funimation's kind of, I think there was a period in the late 90s when they were going to Toonami where you had, especially like Yu Yu Hakusho, which was another shonen series, but it was kind of a more serious show from what I understand. Like in Japan it was more dour. And really a lot of the appeal for me was the humor of that series, but that was added by the translation team. And I think that at that point, like it was not, I don't know, this is my kind of larger thing, but I think a lot of, I think sometimes when they do dubbing jobs now, it's almost a little too respectful of the source material, and I know that can maybe that's that could be like anathema here, but it's like, you could watch Yu Yu Hakusho and just not even watch the animation, and it was entertaining just to listen to these voice actors interact. Like it was almost like Looney Tunes, where you got like Mel Blanc just crafting these characters with his voice.
The question about authors to watch and best authors. I mean, Tom and I have talked about this before on Anime Vice. I'm right here. It's me. I'm here. No, don't have to look at me. Gen Urobuchi is really good. I mean, he did Madoka Magica, Gargantia on the Verdurous Planet. Gen Urobuchi. So that'd be one to look at.
Yeah.
Usually when people talk about anime creators and auteurs, that's stuff that I like to follow. Like Go Nagai, you know, has done Mazen Kaiser and all these giant robot shows. He did Devilman. Like that was the first name that I learned, you know. And then Yoshiaki Kawajiri is like one of my favorite anime directors, even though he doesn't like do stuff too often anymore. And so when you learn the names like the directors, the writers, and you look it up on like the different databases online, you'll find these kind of commonalities in their work, and you can track more easily things that you would enjoy.
Yeah.
Guys, I think we only have time for one more quick question.
I got the last question right here.
And if you guys still have questions after, we'll be happy to take them after the.
Wait, we didn't even get through our list.
That's quite all right, Dave.
And I have to say one more thing real quick, is that the Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing speaks to, especially for this topic, is that like, a lot of times don't just hand your friend an anime and be like, just go watch it and you'll like it. Like, deal with it. Like, watch it together.
Yeah.
Like, I think that that's a really important, like, creating the like camaraderie and community around the experience is part of what gets us all into anything.
You know what's a good MST3K one, because it takes itself seriously but it's so absurd, is High School of the Dead.
Oh, jeez.
I only recommend it because it's not good.
It's
But
terrible.
The thing is, there's
The
a lot-
show is terrible.
That's why I said MST3K,
Yeah.
because you watch it and you're just like, oh my
Can you
God.
believe this bullet can pass through? Are those double D's?
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
But see, if you were watching that with your friend, you could be doing that, and
Exactly.
then you could be watching it together.
That was simultaneously the worst, that was the nadir of anime, and that was the best part of anime. We've got our last comment question.
Don't
Your
bring down the
name?
no talking rule, that's all.
Hi, my name is Julio, and first time in here with the Expo. I have a question. You mentioned earlier about the comparison between Eastern thinking and Western thinking. I'm an educator. I've been an educator for a long time and now in administration. And you know, all we talk about is beginning, middle, and end, and resolution. Should I not even go into this thinking there's a resolution in anime, or and also would this be helpful to introduce this to students that are younger? So.
I mean, as a teaching point, I think it's definitely helpful to kind of expose students to different ways of thinking. I mean, not everything. I mean, the way I look at the shows is that there actually are some, like Samurai 7, that are actually pretty straightforward. It's like beginning, middle, and end, you know, resolution, climax, all that stuff. But it happens enough that you do have the kind of irresolute anime ending.
Yeah, I also think that like the 3-act structure is a great like foundation for like starting to learn story and storytelling and all of that. But it's still just a foundation, and then you build off of that. There's the 5-act structure, there's the 2-act structure. There's all of these structures, even in Western storytelling, to deviate from beginning, middle, end the way we normally understand it. And so like when opening that up, like sure, of course, like start with beginning, middle, end, that's the story. But once that's learned, and then you're opening it up to like, okay, that's the rule, now break it. Anime is a good way to like break it. And just be like, you can do anything.
Or sometimes a good way is like learn what happens when you do break it. Like it might not be, you know, sometimes there's a conceit that's, it's more or less about a story than it is about an idea, you know, a concept, you know, and then the differences between the two.
Yeah, in a lot of anime, you know, they do come to a resolution. You might not like it, your main character might turn into a plant, but, you know, it's like, you know, most
Or
of them-
God.
Or God, you never know.
Oh no, I'm God!
But, you know, and then, you know, as a teacher, there's some, I would not recommend this because it's dark, but there's some stuff, you know, that's sort of like Romeo and Juliet, like Basilisk, which is an amazing anime, a little more adult. If your kid won't watch it, but, you know, there's, a lot of these things are also kind of based on you know, stories we're familiar with.
Well, guys, that's all the time that we have. Thank you guys
Give
so
yourselves
much.
a round of applause.
Thank you for the question.
If any of you still have questions, still want some personal recommendations, you know, just we'll be around.
Yeah.
We'll be around, and make sure to talk to one another. If you saw or heard somebody talk about something you like, don't be afraid, be friendly, and strike up that conversation, guys. That's what this whole thing is meant to do.
And we do these kinds of recommendations a lot online, so check out Cinefix.com and Anime Vice for more stuff like that.
Have a great expo, guys.
Thanks, guys.